प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितपुराणमुनिनां मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणी भगवती अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वानुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी।
Keep your eyes closed. We'll just quickly center ourselves right now. Make sure your back is erect, comfortably seated, either against the wall, the chair. Take your attention to your feet. Relax. To your legs, relax. To your hips, relax. To your back, make sure it is straight and relax. To your shoulders, make sure it is relaxed. Generally, this area is tensed. Consciously relax your neck, back of your forehead, top of your head, forehead. Relax your eyes, your eyelids, your teeth. Your tongue should be comfortably placed. Relax your chin, your neck, your chest. See if you can hear your heartbeat right now. Take your attention to your heart. Feel your heartbeat. Take your attention to your stomach. Relax. Observe your breath, how your stomach comes in and comes out. Take a few moments to observe it. Attention to your legs, to your feet. Relax. You're completely relaxed right now. Scan your body from the head to toe and make sure there is no tension in any part of your body. You should be in a very relaxed, comfortable state. Bring your attention back to your breath. Just observe and witness your breath for a few moments till the time I don't prompt you further. Observe your breath. Slowly take the attention to the Agya chakra. It's a point in between your eyebrows, a place where you put tilak, bindi. Take your attention to your Agya chakra, activate that. You may experience a tingling sensation in that area, which is in between the eyebrows. Keep your focus there. Attention back to Agya chakra. Your eyes should be relaxed. Focus on your Agya chakra. Be there. Slowly get the attention back to your breath. Observe your breath. Not only you're completely relaxed, you have also activated the learning center. Slowly move your fingers. Start rubbing your palms and make sure you put it right in front of your eyes. Let your energies be inside you. Gently open your eyes. All right. Great to have all of you over here. Great. So let's start. So what we are going to do today, and I request each one of you to switch on your video to whatever extent you can. And what we are going to do today is do a quick recap of where we started and where are we right now, so that we can understand holistically what is it that is trying to be communicated. Sometimes what so happens is that we are so intensely involved in every shloka, which is right, we should do that, but we kind of lose the overall essence of what we are trying to do. So we will hold these kind of sessions to try and bring our focus back to understand why are we learning Bhagwat Gita on the first place and how it is going to help us all in our personal lives, in our personal journey. And today's session is to instigate or get us to start thinking on those lines. Okay. All right, so here we go. And I'm going to be a little quick initially, just to kind of wrap up what has happened so far, and then we will go through this. What have we seen so far? In chapter 1, we spoke about the anxiety attack that Arjuna goes through. And he says that he won't fight the war and gives all the reasons to claim why the war is adharma, why the war is wrong. And then when Shri Krishna talks, he basically reprimands Arjuna. Whether he reprimands or he shows something called a tough love, that don't lose your manliness, don't behave like this, go out and fight, you're unbecoming of yourself. So that's what Shri Krishna's tell Arjuna. So Arjuna was filled with a lot of emotions, and Shri Krishna used his emotions to kind of get Arjuna back on track. But it did not help. Arjuna continued to believe that this war is not good, and it is better off for him to live on alms, to be a beggar, than to kill his own teachers. In fact, he also went ahead stating that it is better off that he dies without fighting the battle. So you see that he was so overwhelmed by the tragedy that will come in during the war, and with the idea that he has to kill his own kith and kins, that he becomes completely incapacitated to act. So this is what exactly is happening with him. And this has happened to a lot of us as well, that we sometimes emotions takes us over and it's very difficult for us to think clearly in that moment, what is it that we should be doing? And we end up saying things, doing things which may not necessarily, we would have done it if we were in a right state. But somewhere Arjuna also knew that his decision of not fighting the war is not a right decision. And therefore, he was torn apart in terms of what is it that he should be doing. On one hand, somewhere he knew that he needs to fight this battle. They have prepared for this battle for a long time, and this is Dharma Yuddha. On the other hand, his emotions was preventing him from taking that action. And when he was torn apart between two emotions, he clearly admits to Shri Krishna that I take refuge, and please tell me what is best and what is it I should do. And he clearly calls out that I am confused about dharma. Please tell me what I should do. Somewhere he knew that Shri Krishna asked him to fight, but he still wanted to listen what he wanted to listen. He still expected Shri Krishna should tell him, don't fight, but that's not the case. Because even after Shri Krishna told him that you should fight, Arjuna said, please tell me what is the best for me. And in the end, he keeps his bow and arrow down and he says, I will not fight. And he fell silent. So you can now visualize what is happening. And that is where we close till verse 2.10, second chapter, first 10 verses. Is this all okay? We can the context right. It's important to get the context now. Now let's look at what happens and why in our life partial knowledge can be very dangerous. And this is what Shri Krishna tells Arjuna. He says that you are speaking prajna vadam bhashase. He's trying to say, Arjun, you are speaking the words of wisdom. That's right. There are terrible ramifications of the war, and you're not right. But your information is incomplete. And do you all think, and do you all believe that when we are completely overshadowed by our emotions, we only pick up those points that suits those emotions? Do you see that? And this happens, and a lot of you are counselors and psychologists over here, and on our day-to-day life also we have seen that we tend to always bring out aspects which supports our emotions, and Arjuna did bring out the aspects which supported why this war is adharma, and Shri Krishna validates him by saying, yes, you are speaking the words of wisdom, prajna vadam bhashase. However, you are not yet panditaha. Who is a panditaha here? Panditaha is not someone who does puja and part. Panditaha over here is meant by the person who is wise, who does not mourn. They kill nanu shoshanti gata sung agata sungscha. Means the panditaha is the person who has understood the truth and he does not mourn either for the dead or for the living. And this is what he clearly says in 2.11, that while you speak the words of wisdom, you do not have the complete information, you do not have the complete knowledge, you are not a pandita. That's number one. And then you will see in 2.14, he clearly calls out to Arjuna and he says that you should build titiksha. What is titiksha? Titiksha is endurance. Endurance of what? Endurance is my ability to remain stable, to remain anchored, irrespective of sukha and dukkha, irrespective of pain and pleasure. So one of the important aspects of Pandita is that the Pandita has titiksha, means the ability to endure. Just like we endure summer and winter, in the similar manner, we should be able to endure sukha and dukkha, pleasure and pain, because they're all fleeting. When he means by endurance, does he mean that there will not be any pain? There will not be any sadness? The idea is no, there will be pain. Physical pain is there. Sadness will be there, because if you feel sadness is a very natural part of your mind, but suffering is avoided. So this is what Shri Krishna is saying, that build titiksha. And in verse 2.15, he again calls out that you should become dhiram. So if you see the words here, Pandita, Titiksha, Dhiram. And who is Dhiram? Dhiram is again a wise person. A wise person, why he or she is called a wise person? Because that person is Sama Dukkha Sukham, which means that person is equipoised. He is Sama in both Dukkham and Sukham. So someone who is Pandita, someone who has Titiksha, someone who is Dhiram has something called Amritattva Kalpate. He or she is eligible for liberation. Is it okay? Clear? What is liberation? We'll talk about it. But net, Shri Krishna clearly advises Arjuna to be Pandita, to be Dhira, to have Titiksha, and to have Sama Dukha, Sama in both Dukha and Sukha. This is okay? Clear? It's easy to give the advice. We all tell ourselves that you should not feel sad when you're sad and you should not be exorbitantly be happy when you're happy. Fair point. But what happens is the question to each one of you over here is, how do we endure? How do we endure? How do we build that titiksha? Here, Sri Krishna is advising Arjuna to build that endurance, whether you are sad or happy. So mostly in sadness, you should be able to build your endurance. You should remain stable. You should remain sama, whether you are going through happiness and sadness. Question is how? Should we do it through suppression? Should we do for superimposition? Isn't it? We have been told when we were young that even if you're feeling sad, try to be happy. Do your stuffs. Don't get withered away by the sadness. So how should we do it? Shall we tell ourselves, is it in my free will that if I'm feeling sad, tomorrow I'll not feel sad? Is that a point to each one of you? That how do we endure by suppression? That's the first point. Intuitively, each one of you will say, maybe no. Because even if you suppress right now, it will come out in some form or the other at some point of time. But before we get into endurance, another question that we need to ask ourselves, when do we endure? When is it that we are able to endure a pain? What do you all say? Any quick answer? When can we endure a pain? Anyone?
When we build the muscle to endure. When we have trained or strengthened, then only the endurance gets built.
Okay, that is the physical level. At a mental level, when can we endure?
So if we have done sadhana or meditation and we've practiced it, then probably we can endure.
That is number one. In terms of sadhana you have done, you can endure. What else? When can you endure?
When we have to achieve our goal, when we or when we want to really go ahead and do something, then also we will take the pain because our path ahead is more something which we are looking forward for.
All right. So let me ask you a question in a slightly different way. When we exercise, we have muscle tears, the body pains. Why do we endure that pain?
It's through practice. I think.
No. Why do we endure the pain of exercise?
Because we are aware of the result, which is fruitful in the coming year. Days.
All right. So you somewhere believe the pain that I'm going through is going to help me recover and become a better person. Inherently, you are feeling safe in spite of pain. Think about it. You are feeling safe in spite of pain, right? Second question I'm going to ask you. What makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur? Because the entrepreneurship basically requires taking a lot of risks. Why does an entrepreneur able to take risks and a normal person or a person who goes to office does not take risks? Why? What gives that entrepreneur that endurance?
Because he believes that, whatever he's doing, it is for a bigger freedom.
So can I say?
Because he trusts the pain somewhere, there is a sense of trust and awareness that it's going to lead him where he wants to go.
So there is a sense of assurance. There is a sense of assurance that even if my decision goes wrong, nothing will happen to me. I have the ability to rebound. There is a sense of assurance, right? So let me ask you a question again over here. Suppose in case Sahana has 1,00,000 rupees and Vidhan has 10,000 rupees, and both of us have invested, say, 5,000 rupees in markets. Who will be more scared, Vidhan or Sahana?
Of course, Vidhan.
Why?
Because he has invested, he has money to recover.
He has invested half.
Because for Bidhan, he has invested a lot of money, of his 50% of his wealth into in markets. Sahan has invested just 5% of her wealth in markets. So what it means is that Bidhan's ability to take loss is much lesser. Why? Because he is not safe. He does not feel secured, isn't it? Suppose if you have a housing loan, and you don't have enough investments with you, or you don't have enough money with you, would you be in a position to give up your job and start an entrepreneurship journey? Very difficult. So what is important for us to understand here is, and think about it, we can endure only when we feel safe, only when we feel assured. If we feel safe in the relationship, there's a lot of endurance in the relationship. If we don't feel safe in the relationship, there is absolutely no endurance in the relationship. If we feel safe about our abilities, we have immense amount of appetite to take risks. So endurance is directly proportional to what? To your ability to feel safe, ability to feel assured. And that is what clearly demarcates between an entrepreneur and a non-entrepreneur, right? Okay, how do we build endurance? How do we become Pandita? Because Pandita or Dhiram, what Sri Krishna is talking about, has a lot of endurance. They remain stable in spite of pleasure and pain. The pain does not move them. The pain does not disturb them. It does not make them into suffering. How? What makes a person Dhiram or a Pandita? Sri Krishna is using Arjuna to do that, yes?
The knowledge of knowing that there is assurance.
Absolutely, you're right.
So the knowledge of self.
The knowledge of self. So ultimately, through right knowledge, by knowing who truly I am, I will end up building a lot of endurance. And that is the promise of Bhagwat Gita. That I will help you build a lot of endurance so that you become Pandita, you become Dhiram, you remain equipoised in pleasure and pain by giving you the Brahma Vidya, by giving you the right knowledge. Is that okay? Right? So this is what we have learned so far, that how do we endure? How do we, that Titik Chattva that we are talking about, certainly not by separation or instinctive expression all the time. It's not about separation. It's not about mindless expression, right? We can endure only when we feel assurance and safety. And how do we build assurance and safety? By changing the perspective of who I am about the world and about the God around us. And this understanding has to be firm. It has to be really ingrained in each and every cell of ours. May not necessarily be important to be having intellectual understanding. So do you now understand the purpose of Bhagavad Gita and where Sri Krishna is taking Arjuna to how do we? So Sri Krishna is going to help Arjuna build a lot of endurance through right knowledge. Great. So before I move on to the further verses, I need to have a quick recap and make and bring out some very important final points. So we have to understand, and this is what we have done in Tattva Bodha, but some of you must be new right now, that if you look at our own body has three aspects, or our own existence has three aspects. One is the gross body, the body that you and I can see, right? That body which is made up of matter. This is your bones, this is your skull, this is your hormones, this is the blood. That is your sthula sharira, right? There is something called sukshma sharira or subtle body. What is that subtle body? Subtle body is basically your life energy that flows through your, say for example, your respiratory system, digestive system, pancha prana they talk about, right? At the same time, your thoughts. Is the thought a part of your physical reality? No, your brain is a physical reality. The neural activities of your brain is a physical reality. But what about thoughts? What about ideas? What about memories, right? So they do not belong to a physical reality and they belong to a subtle reality. And that is called Sukshma Sharira. If you have to understand the parlance, if you look at a computer, the hardware is Sthula Sharira and the software is Sukshma Sharira. Only when the software is there, the hardware functions. And the software does not have any weight. right? If you have a chip, the chip has a weight, but the memory does not have a weight, right? Whether you have a 1 GB memory or 20 GB memory or 100 GB memory, the weight of the chip remains the same. So subtle, you have a subtle body and you have a gross body. I'm not getting into causal body right now. Is that all okay for all of you? Now, the second important part over here is that during the death, what happens is, what dies is the physical body, but the subtle body continues to remain, which means your memories, your ideas, your perceptions, that continues to be there, and that moves from one body to another body. So that is, it's like this, that when the hardware is not working, you always can take this software and reload into another computer. Correct? And the software can also keep on getting upgraded, because the software is the subtle body of the computer and computer is the hardware. Similarly, at the time of death, what falls is your gross body, but what travels is your subtle body. Please understand, I'm not saying that your Atma travels. Nowhere Atma travels. The subtle body travels. Sometimes the subtle body is loosely called as soul. There is no concept of soul in Upanishads. They only talk about Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body that travels. And that's why sometimes you have, and these are called vasanas. Those are called samskaras. And therefore they say the people are born with certain vasanas and samskaras. Is that all okay for all of you? It is important to understand this because in Bhagwat Gita, there are shlokas where they say the embodied moves from one body to another. It is not talking about Atma. Atma cannot move. It talks about subtle body. It talks about your Sukshma Sharira. And therefore, I'm clarifying a few things before we go into the shlokas. Is it okay for all of you? Okay. Now, if the gross body is this and the subtle body is the life force which travels, then where is Atma? Who is Atma? Where is that talking about? So just understand that you have a hardware, you have a software, but this both hardware and software works only if there is an electricity. There has to be third factor. The electricity will always be there. Only in the presence of electricity, both hardware and software functions. So ultimately, when you're talking about Atman, who is Atman? What is Atman? Atman is that very awareness that observes, that witnesses your physical body, your subtle body. You all know, right? You all know that you know your thoughts, isn't it? You all can feel your thoughts. You can see your thoughts, isn't it? You can feel your body. The point I'm asking is that who is the one who is feeling it? Who is the one who is witnessing it? That witness of body and mind, which is separate from the body and mind, because for you to experience something, you have to be separate from it, isn't it? For you to experience something, you have to be separate from it. Since you are experiencing your thoughts, since you're experiencing your emotions, since you're experiencing your ideas, since you're experiencing your body, which means you are the experiencer, and that experiencer is called Atman. That is also known as Chit. And we can go into certain meditations to kind of understand this idea. Right now, intellectually, we are trying to understand. So when I'm taking you through the meditation, when I'm saying, observe your feelings on your legs, your stomach, who is the one who is observing? The mind cannot observe because you're observing your mind as well. The mind also gets observed. So that observer is called Atman. It is also called Chit. Is this okay? Now the interesting part comes here is that you may end up thinking, okay, the observer inside me is separate from the observer inside you. So the Atman inside me is separate from the Atman inside you. And they say, no, there are no two Atmans. There can be two Sukshma Sharira, there can be two subtle bodies, but the very Atman, the very life force, the very Atman which resides within me and the very Atman which resides within you, or the very Atman that observes this body and mind and the very Atman that absorbs your body and mind is one and the same. And then you'll say, hey, how does it work? Does it really make sense? And therefore we kind of ask this question, look at this. And if I ask you a question, there is a space in a pot? Most of you will say, yes, there is a space in a pot. And then we turn around this question, and we have done with most of you. There is a space in the pot, or the pot is in the space? Right? Then you will say, yes, there is a pot in the space, because there is no concept of space in the pot. You cannot cut that space and take somewhere else. So which means that the pot is in the space, and you have sort of created an artificial boundary saying this is a pot space, which goes to say that there is only one consciousness, there is only one Atman, there is only one Brahman. Even using the word one is wrong. It is only non-dual Atman, non-dual consciousness, non-dual Brahman, and we are like small pots, holding small parts of that consciousness. So this Atman, and the Atman within you and the me is one and the same. It is like the same electricity, which is basically running the computer, multiple computers, and everything around in my house. It's the same Atman, which is present in all of us, right? So this is a second important concept. The first concept is our body has three parts: stool, shukshma, karana. During the time of death, what drops is the gross matter. The stool sharira, what travels is the sukshma sharira. But the Atman continues to be present in you and me, and it is unmovable. It cannot move. Why? Because it is beyond space. For anything to move, it has to be within space and time. But Atman is beyond space, beyond time, right? And then comes another important word called adhishthanam or substratum. And this is again, these three are very important, because when you're going to look at those verses, we need to understand these three concepts very well. And they say that the entire universe that you are experiencing right now, not only the experiencer is the Atman, but all that you are experiencing, the adhishthanam, the substratum, is also Atman, is also Brahman. What does it mean? It simply means is when you look at the pot, you basically look at the name and the form. But ultimately, what is pot made up of? It is made up of clay. So if you break the pot becomes clay. So ultimately, pot is nothing but a clay with a name and form superimposed on top of it. If you look at any ornaments, the substratum is what? The gold. So the gold is nothing but gold. So gold with the name and form becomes an ornament. So you cannot take the gold away. Gold is the adhishthanam. Suppose if you go to a beach, you see froth, you see bubbles, you see waves, big waves, small wave. But what is the adhisthana? The adhisthana is water. It is nothing but water that appears as a big wave, small waves, froth, bubbles, and everything. So the entire universe that you experience right now is nothing but appearance in Atman. So Atman or Brahman is the adhishthanam. Atman and Brahman are the words which is basically used. Atman with respect to this body and Brahman with respect to the universe. But we are kind of interchangeably using this word right now, because more or less it means the same when they say Tat Tvam Masi. So fact over here is, so these are three important aspects that we have learned right now. Bodies are three: Sthula, Shukshma, Karana. After death, what moves is Sukshma Sharira. Then where is Atman? Atman is the experiencer. The very experiencer which experiences the body and mind. And this Atman is all pervading. It's everywhere. It's not your Atman versus my Atman. And this Atman forms the substratum, the adhishthanam of everything around. All right. Now, having understood this, now we are going to look at the shlokas, and then it's going to make sense to all of us. Are we okay with it, or we are going too fast? Any questions so far? Okay. I know Atman is beyond time, but we are constrained by time because we are in the body and mind, and 8:30 is something I need to finish things. And we also need to have some time for discussion, so pardon me for that. All right. So coming back to the question, how do we build endurance? The point here is that you have a choice. You have a choice either to identify yourself with the body and mind or with the very essence of who you truly are, which is Atman. And it's not an easy task. It's certainly not an easy task. And what Shri Krishna is trying to do is helping Arjuna change his perspective and do not get too identified with the body and mind of all the warriors, including his body and mind, and see Atman everywhere and understand the very essence does not die. The very essence which enlivens this body and mind does not die. All right. And therefore, the fact of the matter is that you are not killing anyone and no one is getting killed. And we'll see how it now goes. So let's look at this. Let's look at Shloka 2.13, Shloka 2:13. And they say, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam zara. So what they're trying to say is that you should not grieve. Why? Because just as the embodied soul, again here the word soul, so unfortunately I've copied it wrong, it should be just as the embodied continuously passes from childhood to old age, similarly at the time of death, the embodied passes into another body. So here, what is they talking about? Are they talking about Atman or they're talking about Sukshma Sharira? So here the word embodied, here the word we are using is Dehino. The word over here is Dehino. It's not saying that Atman is traveling. They're saying the embodied. Now it is left to interpretation of people. Some of them call it Atman, but most of them say that Atma is beyond space, beyond time, and the following verses you will end up seeing that. So Atma cannot travel from one body to another. What travels from one body to another is the subtle body. And this verse kind of talks about that. Is that okay? This is what 2.13. So after death, what falls is your physical body. But what remains intact is the subtle body. So your subtle body, my subtle body, does not get impacted after death. It will find itself into another body, expressing into another body. All right. And therefore, working on the subtle body is not only going to help us benefit in this life, but it is also going to benefit us in multiple lifetimes. Do you see the subtle implications of these verses? So every time that you're working at your subtle body, you are actually working towards multiple lifetimes. All right. Now, let's look at the verse 2.16, which is what we are now transitioning into the essence of what we have spoken about Sat and Chit. All right. So in verse 2.16, this is probably one of the most important verse in Bhagwat Gita in chapter 2, where they say that which is Sata or that which is Satya is there is no non-existence, and that which is Asata, which is Mithya or which is not Satya, there is no existence. And let's understand this. And this has been conclusively understood by whom? By the rishis. Rishis who looked at the truth, tattva. So rishis were also called as mantra drashta. Here the word uses drishibhihi, who can actually see the mantras. So they are talking, so Shri Krishna is basically talking about rishis who saw the truth. And when they saw the truth, they conclusively understood that the real, the Sat, will never lose its existence, and the unreal, Asat, will never pop into existence. But it looks complicated. And how do we make sense out of it? Right? So we will certainly make sense out of this. And if we understand the shloka, we have sort of understood what we are talking about so far. And we are going to go very slow on this. Now, when we say the word Satya, generally, when we say Satyame Javate, word Satya, Satya, the first thing that comes into our mind is speaking truth. But that's not what is mentioned here. Here the word Satya is, or Satya, is referred to a fundamental aspect which cannot be negated or refuted at any given point of time. That is either in the past, present, or in future. So there is a fundamental essence, something which is so fundamental that it cannot be refuted either in the past, in the present, or in the future. So that which is not refuted at any given point of time is called Sat. Right? They call it Sat is Trikala Abhiditam, Abhaditam, sorry about it. Right? What does it mean? It means that the truth or that fundamental essence is not affected in the past. It is basically not affected by the past. What does it mean? It simply means that the Sat is beyond past, which is, it is unborn. It was never born because it is beyond past. It remains as it is in the past. So it is unborn. Now, the same Sat is basically beyond, is also not changing in the future. It is beyond future. So means it is eternal. It has no end. So anything which is Sat, anything which is Satya, anything which is real, right, is unborn, uncreated, because it is beyond past. Anything which is Satya will always remain in the future. It is beyond future because it means it has no end. It is eternal. And anything which is Satya does not get affected by the present also. This is a little complicated. So I understand that anything which is Satya, which does not get affected by the past, it is unborn, it is uncreated, so it does not get affected by the past, and it will not get affected in the future because it is eternal. But when we are saying it is not getting affected in the present, what does it mean? It simply means that it does not change in the present. So for example, if a boy or a girl is 4-year-old and becomes a 5-year-old, that means the 4-year-old is died. And therefore the person has become a 5-year-old. If I have a specific thought in the past and I have a new thought in the present, the old thought has died, right? Which means that these things are changing. When you are saying that the Sat is unaffected by the present, it means it is completely unchanging. It is completely unchanged. So anything that is not affected by the past, that is unborn, that is uncreated, and something which is eternal, and something which is changeless is called Sat, Satya, which transcends Desh, Kal, and Karma. Now, anything that is a part of creation, anything that's just created, sustains and dissolves, is Asat. So if you look at it from this definition, the entire universe is Asat. Why? Because it born. There's a Big Bang theory. It started. It sustains and it will dissolve. Your body is Asat because it is a part, it's created, it is sustaining, and it is going to die. Even your mind at some point of time will dissolve. Your Sukshma Sharira also will dissolve. So then you kind of say, hey, wait a minute. You're saying that this universe, the body and mind is Asat. But that is the only truth that I can see. I feel my body, I feel my mind, I feel the universe. How can you call it unreal? And what you're saying is real. Where is that? How can I basically experience the real? Isn't it? That's the first question the mind will say, that where? I mean, you are invalidating my emotions because you're saying the emotion is unreal. Your thoughts are unreal. The body is unreal. The entire universe is unreal. How do we kind of make sense out of the entire thing? But this is what the shloka is trying to say. And let's understand this further. So to understand this, a very beautiful analogy is given by Shankara, and he talks about the snake and the rope analogy. And we will have heard about it, that if there is a rope which is kept and suddenly there is a darkness, we end up seeing a snake, isn't it? It's possible, right? That a rope is mistaken as a snake, correct? Now let me ask you, what is real, rope or a snake? Of course, it is the rope is the reality. But at that moment, when you saw the snake, what was real for you? Snake was the reality in that moment. Till the time the light was switched on and you were able to see the rope. But in that moment, when there was darkness or partial darkness, what was reality for you is the snake, right? We are not able to see the rope. So for our understanding, let us now make it a little simpler for ourselves. So we say that there are 3 levels of reality. One level of reality is absolute reality, which is called Satya. So which Shri Krishna is talking about some hazy stuff, that something which is unborn, uncreated, limitless, changeless. I don't know what he's talking about, right? So that is some absolute reality which is being spoken about. And they say that that is Atman, that is Brahman. I really don't understand that. Fair point. It's okay. Let's be okay with it. Now, there is a absolute reality, Satya. There is also something called apparent reality. What is an apparent reality? Reality that you and I can basically discuss. Okay, here is a bottle, apparent reality, because you and I kind of somewhere say this makes sense. Say, for example, when you look at a wave is an apparent reality, isn't it? There is a name and a form superimposed on water. It's an apparent reality. If you look at a ornament, it's an apparent reality. And there is something called absolutely unreal. For example, if I say there's an elephant in my hand, that is unreal, right? So, okay, so now here we kind of clearly break into 3 things. Something which is absolutely real, and there's something which is absolutely unreal, and there is something which is apparently real, which is neither real nor unreal, right? So it's in this case, the rope is absolutely real. And what is apparent here is the snake, correct? But when you switch on the light, there is no snake. But when the light is not there, there is a presence of snake, isn't it? So Shri Krishna is basically trying to tell Arjuna that what you're seeing is snakes and snakes all around, because you haven't yet become Pandita. You haven't yet become Dhira. You are still looking at the apparent reality, but I would like you to look at Satya. Look at something which is real, right? And that underlying reality, which is conscious, which is unborn, unchanging, eternal, that is Atman. And that Atman never dies. But it's very difficult to see the Atman. Why? Why it is difficult to see the Atman? Because the Atman itself is the observer. You are the Atman. You are the one who is observing it. And what get observed is your body, mind, and universe. So your observations are apparent reality, which is Jadam, which is Anityam, which is something that is always changing. So again, if you go back to the verse, it says that which is Sata, that which is Satya, that is your fundamental aspect, which is Atman, there is no non-existence, which means it will never lose its existence. That underlying essence of you, which is Atman, it always existed in the past, it is changeless in the present, and it will always remain in the future. However, that which is Asat, there is no existence. So that what you experience, your body, your mind, the body and mind of everything around you, right? That part is Asat. It is apparent. It is just seen at this point, just as you end up seeing a snake because of darkness, because of Ajnanam, because of lack of knowledge, you are seeing everything around as a body and mind and assuming that is the truth. But actually, something which is apparent has no existence. It came out of the thin air and it will dissolve in the thin air, right? And this was conclusively understood by the rishis. And if Arjuna, you can understand this, you'll stop seeing that you will be the one who will be killing or you will be one who will be killed. And that kind of brings us to the This part is clear to all of you, right? Let's look to the Shloka 17. And what in Shloka 17 is saying, that essence is sarvamidam tatam. It simply means that essence is this entire universe is pervaded. By whom this entire universe is pervaded. So that Atman is pervading the entire universe. Shri Krishna himself is saying that. In Shloka 17, you can refer to this. And he also calls this essence as avyasyayasya. It simply means it is changeless. And this is what we said. What is Satyam? Which is changeless in the current moment. It is always changeless, right? And he basically also calls it avinashi. The very essence inside me, which is Atman, cannot ever be destroyed. In Shloka 18, it talks about anashina, right? It is again, the essence inside me cannot ever be destroyed. It is nitya, which is eternal. It is always going to be there in the future. It was always there in the past, right? And it cannot be ever destroyed. And this is pervading everything around me. And then he also speaks about aprameya. Aprameya, it can be called as immeasurable or unknowable. And this is the fact that then you will say that, how do I see Atma? You can never see Atma. Why you can't ever see Atma? Because you are the Atman. You are always the subject. You are always the one who is going to observe. The fact that there is an observation, you exist, is very beautifully, it was explained in a previous class, where they say that when someone has taken a picture, the presence of camera is understood because picture cannot be taken in absence of a camera. The fact that there is an observation, the fact that there is someone who is able to experience, it calls for a presence of an experiencer, the witness of all the experiences. And that is who you truly are. And this has to be understood, right? It also in Shloka 19, it talks about nahanti. It says that Atman, the very essence, who you are, is not the killer. What does it mean when he says not the killer? It means that Atma does not do anything. Who does it? It's your sukshma and sthula sharira who does it. It's your physical body and the subtle body does any action. But the Atman does not do any action, right? It is just witnessing all the actions. And it also says na hanyate, which means that the very essence, the Atman, is never killed. It simply means it's not even a bhukta, it's not a receiver. So karma phalam basically goes to whom? To the body and the mind. So tomorrow, if someone kills someone, one cannot say, I am not the killer. The judge will say, I know, Atman, you are not the killer, but we have to punish the body and mind, and therefore the body and mind has to be executed and have to be killed. Right? So the point over here is that in Shloka 19, it clearly says that the Atma is na hanti, na hanyate, but in presence of Atma, everything happens. It's just like in presence of light, all the activity happens. Once you take the light away, there is absolutely no activity, but light has no active role to play. Similarly, the Atman, which is all pervading consciousness, the Atman, which is the very witness, has no role to play, but in the presence of Atman, all the things happen. And therefore, he expects Arjuna to sort of start looking at the entire game, entire plan of Mahabharata from that aspect. And Shloka 20, again, he talks about Atman, and he calls Atman as Ajaha, which means it is unborn, the same thing. Nitya, which is eternal. So this is Satya. What is Satya? Satya is something which always was, which always will be, and which always will remain changeless, constant in the present moment. So the Atman, which pervades not only this body, but the entire body, entire world, is Aja, which always was Purana, has always been eternal, Nitya, which is always there, Shashwata, which is always immortal. So ultimately, what is the bigger plan? The bigger plan over here is for Arjuna to shift his attention to mere body and mind, calling himself as Arjuna, as this body and mind and emotions and beliefs and ideas, and the body of mind of another's, to move attention from the body and mind to the real essence, which is Atman, which never dies, which always was, which always will be, which is changeless, which is constant. And by doing so, the person becomes Pandita, the person becomes Dhira, the person is able to withstand the pleasure and pain with certain amount of equanimity. This process is certainly not very easy, as it has been said here, and therefore Bhagwat Gita has been written in fairly long point. And I'm just hoping that over a period of time, when the same question, the same idea gets reinforced again and again, and we kind of do certain Vedantic meditations, we sort of start understanding our real essence, this knowledge will slowly seep in. So I kind of put these things together right now. I'll stop my presentation, and this kind of brings together what we have learned so far. Any questions?
Vidhan, I have one. So when we say Atman is the same as Atma, is the same as soul?
No. Soul is generally, there's no word called soul in our in our scriptures. Soul is a Western construct, right? And my understanding, if they say the soul travels from one body to another, it refers mostly to your subtle body.
Okay.
Right? Because Atman or Brahman, it is clearly saying that Atman and Brahman is all pervading. It clearly says it is Satya. So something which is, yeah.
So then probably did I make a mistake last time when I presented last Wednesday? I made references to how we'd say कि unki atma ko shanti mile. So when we say unki atma, then what is it that we are referring to at that time? Is it the subtle body, or
Yeah,
is it the Atman?
It is the subtle body, because Atman is beyond.
Exactly.
Beyond anything.
So yeah, then I think we really need to get that right, because maybe I misunderstood, and I probably might have created some confusion by including that.
But that's okay. That's absolutely fine. Because we all use Atman very loosely, or Atma very loosely. We have always been told Atma travels from one body to another, and so on and so forth. That is one way of looking at it. But from an Advait perspective,
right?
What travels from one body to another? Because see, Atman, it's like a space, and it is a bubble. So imagine yourself as a bubble. So you being a bubble, you basically capture certain amount of space. Right? So there is a big space and there is a small space. The small space within you can call it Atman, and the big space outside, you can call it Brahman. But when the bubble bursts, there is no physical merging of space that happens. The space remains space. So Atman and Brahman is one and the same. Okay. Right? So what travels is the bubble. So bubble may burst, become water, and become bubble again.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're saying unki atma ko shanti de, we are generally referring to the subtle body, because shanti kahan aayegi? Shanti happens in my mind, in my samskaras, in my vasanas. That needs to settle down. Okay. So it is assumed that then the subtle body travels from one body to another. We hope that subtle body kind of becomes a little bit more mature.
We must have our own subtle bodies.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Okay.
And also, Kaushal, I'd just like to add one more point here.
Yeah.
That is why, in lot of the places of Bhagwat Gita, Atman word is not used by Lord Krishna a lot. He says Shariri. Because the moment the Atman comes, we are all looking at something other than us. Something outside of us. So the moment he says Shariri, Dehi, it's like look within. That is one of the reasons, or also one of the commentators where I was reading is the reason that Atman word is interchangeably used, but The Sharira, that it gives that thing that, it's something away from us, different from us.
Okay.
The Shariri word is used, if we see the lot of Slokas, Sharira, Shariri, Deha, Dehi. So those are the kind of words that are used to, make the listener come back to the thing that you're actually talking about yourself.
Okay.
That I'm telling you about yourself is what it is.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And what this Sukshma Sharir is made of?
So what is Sukshma Sharira made up of? Again, this is another concept. So it's basically made up of subtle matter. So we've kind of gone through, when we did our Tattvabodha, we went into the entire process of understanding what is gross body made up of, what is subtle body made up of, how did the subtle body come into picture, how did Panchikarana happen. So maybe we can again talk about it later. It's an entire process. To just answer you very shortly, there is a presence of subtle matter, and the subtle matter leads to the creation of subtle body.
Okay. Okay, I have one more question. Like, how fair, how justified is to say, like, Krishna told to Arjuna that Arjuna, you can go ahead and kill anybody because anyways they're gonna be killed. They are just body and mind. Atma can't be killed. You are just killing the bodies, right? So, but on humanitarian grounds, we try to save every life. We think everybody has equal rights to, though they are in body, and though even after understanding this, okay, we are Atman, means Atma Paramatma only, but still we try to save every embodied beings on this earth, right? So how justified is to say ki, though they are like, okay, they are rivals, but they also have, at the same time, they also have a right to live in their bodies, right? So how was the statement justified?
All right, so we'll have to kind of refer back to the concept of Dharma Yuddha, where we say that, of course, the killing is not good in the present moment, but if you don't kill, if you don't sort of establish Dharma back, the Adharma will end up killing a lot more people over a longer period of time. So you have to basically take the bitter pill right now, that either you sort of don't engage in a war and allow the unjust people to rule and kind of create anarchy over a long term, or you engage in a war right now to basically bring an end to the anarchy which may otherwise happen in the long run. So that's the base on which we are talking. That's the base of Dharma which has been talking, which will definitely be discussed as we go along.
Okay, but as humans, we don't follow these things, right? Like we try to save everybody, be they are politicians and are normal people or anybody else, right?
No. As humans, we don't try to save anyone. Say, for example, if the mosquito is coming to bite you, you're going to kill the mosquito immediately, isn't it? So even the mosquito has Atma inside, if at all you're trying to take the concept of thing, right? We don't ever do that. And the fact of the matter is, as humans, we basically eat food, and the food also has life in it. And then we can kind of justify. So it's not about that. It's about following a particular process.
But we don't see humans as these are dharmis and adharmis, but we save everybody equally, try to, right? Like maybe he is God, he can give such statements, but we can't.
All right, thank you.
I think I'd like to add one point
Yeah.
here is probably Shivani, instead of looking at it in the literal sense, like go and fight. When Sri Krishna is saying, if we were to look at it in our lives, we are not fighting wars every day. We are not killing people every day. It's about facing life the right way, right? That is the philosophical message that's coming out. In this particular context, it's set in a war, and he is asking Arjuna to do the right thing. But if we have to take it from a philosophical sense, for us, we have to face life the right way. That's all it is.
Follow the dharma.
Yeah.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing.
Hold on to the ultimate truth
do
and
the
do the
right
right
thing
thing.
at the what the moment requires.
Correct. So that is what, right? He's saying it in three different levels. One is the philosophical level, one is the dharmic level, and third is the worldly level. So
Vyavaharika level, yeah.
Correct. So any which way, right? If you are doing philosophical level, you have to do the right thing, and you should not be, clinging to your body and the mind and everything that is transient. That is the philosophical level. And if you are talking about the, from a dharmic level, then you are saying that you have to do the right thing. Whatever is the right thing to do, that you go ahead and do, right? So that is probably how we should interpret that.
And just to add to what Asha is telling, Lord Krishna is trying to tell you that, identify yourself with the absolute and act in the relative.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of these things will come as you go along. Well, we have already crossed our time. We can just do the prayers right now. All those who wants to stay back and ask questions, please feel free to do that. All who would want to leave, please leave after the prayer. Yeah.
Okay. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you. If there are any questions, I think in the chat box there was a question from Shweta. Can we build endurance without feeling assured? Shweta, you're still there?
I have something to add here. Like we are talking about following the right path. But the question is that how do we decide what is right? So there could be something which is right to me, but could be wrong to the person in front of me. So, how do we see the bigger picture that, in a long run, that is because we all are very busy in our life. Can say that we are short-sighted, not very far-sightedness that we have.
Maybe
So-
end of this Gita learnings, you may be able to do it better.
I doubt that we'll ever be in that situation.
Vashanjali, stay with that question. That how do we identify what is right, what is wrong? Because right and wrong itself can be a concept, it can be a mental construct. Slowly you will understand that as we come closer to our real essence, which is Atman, we will sort of have an intuitive understanding what is Dharma. So if you remember in the first class, we spoke about Satya, Rita, and Dharma. Satya, which is what the underlying principle is all about that we spoke about. On Satya, there is something called Rita. Rita is basically how the entire universe is functioning. And what is Dharma? How can I align my actions with Rita? So the point you are asking is, how do I understand Dharma? Because everybody is interpreting Dharma in their own manner. And therefore, it's going to be a little bit of a trial and error method. It will be our own intuitive understanding. The more stable we become, the more conscious we become of our thoughts and our patterns, the more closer we come to our real essence, which is Atman, the concept, the idea of Dharma will start emerging within our own self. Otherwise, looking out for someone to explain what is right and wrong, we are basically taking their mental construct into us. So this is certainly not a direct answer to your question, but this is the process as we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we have originated from the duality. So our survival mode is always on duality. So right or wrong, it's important to move forward, to exist on this physical body. It is always going to be there. The judgment has to be, it's very tough to be on a observer mode constantly.
Yeah. You have to take decisions at some point of time.
Exactly.
The decision gets taken and you're observer of the decision. I'm just trying to say, just be with it. We will basically get these answers as we go along, because these questions will come up again and again. These questions will come up by Arjuna himself. For all you know, we will get these answers as we go.
Can we say actually it's very close to conscience? When we say you're listening to your conscience, we don't expect someone else to tell me what should be my conscience, right? My conscience emerges from within me. So Bidan, can we kind of relate this to conscience to some extent.
We can, Asha. So what happens is when we are this becomes very, very relative, because when we are talking about conscience, are we talking about my thoughts of what is right or wrong, or there is some feeling inside me which decides what is right and wrong?
It's
right?
the feeling, actually.
Gut feeling,
That
gut
feeling
feeling.
also comes from my subconscious mind, right?
Correct.
And my subconscious mind is also a part of my vasanas, of my samskaras. The samskaras which I'm carrying from my previous birth, which I have created from the time I'm born. So again, so what I've understood is there are three things. One is instinct, one is intelligence, another is intuition. So generally we try and get confused between instinct and intuition. Instinct is something that comes from within. It kind of tells us this is right and wrong. This is something called motherly instinct that we all say, right? That we kind of know exactly. If you have been in a business, you will have that instinct. But there's something called intuition. Intuition is something which is beyond my intellect. I kind of go beyond time and space and get some sort of a vision, which is what the rishis got when they went into the superconscious state. And therefore, it's very difficult to decide whether the idea is coming out of my intuition or from my instinct, and we kind of use our intelligence to confuse ourselves further. So, okay. Right. Any more questions, Shweta, to our answer the question that you have asked? That can there be without assurance? How do we build endurance? I think assurance is a very key part. A lot of people say by practice you can keep on doing, but somewhere assurance is important. You need to feel comfortable with the loss, and therefore only at that point of time your endurance improves significantly.
It
Also,
needn't be the outcome. It can just be assurance within yourself. It's not like the outcome is satisfactory, so I'm assured. That's not the case.
Yes.
Okay. And is there any philosophy or system which says that the subtle body and the physical body kind of perishes, and then, like in this concept, it's like basically the subtle body moves from one to another, and the physical body perishes. So is there any other I don't know, philosophy or system that believes that the subtle body also doesn't transfer? It also perishes along with the physical body.
So that concept is there here, but it is for people who are called Jivan Muktas, where after gaining enlightenment, after getting moksha, the subtle body dissolves. But till the time that does not happen, it travels from one body to another.
Okay. Okay.
That's the Hindu thought, but I am not aware of any other thought on this matter.
Thank you.
Great having you all here, and see you all next week then. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Bidan.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
It was beautiful.